Some Harley engines earned their place in history for all the wrong reasons. These weren't small quirks or harmless oil spots you joke about in the garage. These were full-blown failures, documented in service bulletins, whispered about in dealerships, and paid for by riders who trusted the badge more than the engineers who signed off on these motors. In this video, we're counting down the 10 worst engines Harley ever released. The ones that stranded riders, emptied wallets, and nearly broke the bond between the brand and the men who built its legacy. And trust me, number 1 is a story every rider should hear, so stick with this one till the end. Number 10. Harley-Davidson Revolution Engine. Some ideas promise progress, yet end up reminding riders that engineering brilliance means nothing if it forgets the men who keep the miles alive. This was one of those moments. The Revolution engine arrived with swagger, built to drag Harley into a future of higher revs, tighter tolerances, and liquid cooling. On paper, it looked like the kind of technical leap a company could celebrate. But for riders who grew up tuning their own machines in the garage, swapping jets, and adjusting timing by feel, this new direction felt cold. The rhythm, the pulse, the low-end confidence older riders trusted was replaced with a character that belonged more to a laboratory than a long highway run. Many respected the craftsmanship, yet few felt at home with it. The deeper frustration came from how the engine separated riders from their own machines. Home wrenching stopped being part of ownership. Valve service required specialized tools. Cooling components demanded dealer-level access. A lifetime of experience meant less, and the man who once fixed everything with a socket set and patience suddenly needed an appointment to perform work he had done for decades. Pride took a hit, and so did the bond between rider and machine. Those who pushed the engine hard found heat building in unfamiliar ways, and the high-rev personality clashed with the slow, confident cadence older riders valued on long interstate climbs. It was not a bad design, but it was a design built for a different rider, and that difference carved a fault line through the community. The Revolution engine produced roughly 115 horsepower from 1,130 cubic centimeters in its early form and 1,250 cubic centimeters in later models, delivering between 78 and 86 pound-feet of torque, depending on the year. What came afterward revealed how far a company can drift when chasing a new market, instead of the riders who built its legacy. Number 9. Harley-Davidson Revolution X-Engine. Some machines arrive with the weight of expectation, not because riders asked for them, but because a company felt pressured to reinvent itself for a market that never truly understood the culture behind these roads. That was the story behind this engine, a design meant to lure new riders with smaller frames, lighter manners, and lower entry costs. Yet the men who spent decades trusting the steady rhythm of a real V-twin sensed immediately that something felt off. The character was softer, the throttle unsure, and the heat rising from the frame suggested a motor that needed refinement long before it deserved nationwide distribution. It was a machine built for an audience that rarely stayed long enough to love it. Veteran riders noticed the behavioral quirks first. When rolling out from a light or navigating a crowded parking lot, the unpredictable hesitation followed by a sudden leap made the engine feel unsteady, especially for less experienced hands. Confidence on a bike comes from predictability, and this engine delivered the opposite. Those who took pride in decades of mechanical intuition felt as though the machine was arguing with them, refusing to respond with the smooth, intuitive pull they expected. For veterans who valued self-reliance, the whispers about inconsistent build quality and uneven assembly only deepened the concern. Pride in craftsmanship matters, and many felt that pride slipping away. The controversy deepened when riders learned where this engine had been assembled. For a brand built on American iron, the shift toward overseas production created a cultural divide. It was not about nationalism, it was about trust. Riders who devoted themselves to the heritage of the open road felt the foundation shift under them. The engine promised accessibility, yet delivered compromises that loyal riders could not ignore. It worked hard, but it never earned the confidence of the community that carries Harley's legacy through every mile. The Revolution X engine generated approximately 47 horsepower from 749 cubic centimeters and delivered 44 pound-feet of torque, placing it on the lower end of Harley's performance spectrum. Earlier designs carried their own struggles, leaving behind stories of metal, heat, and stubborn flaws that stayed alive for decades. Before we continue, take a moment to like this video, subscribe for more deep breakdowns, and leave a comment sharing your experience. Your support helps this channel reach riders who need to know the truth behind these engines. Number 8. Harley-Davidson, early panhead. Some legacies begin with promise, yet carry a flaw that follows riders for generations. The early panhead was one of those legacies, admired for its fresh look, yet remembered for the stubborn weaknesses that tested the patience of men who depended on their machines. Riders respected the cleaner top end and the enclosed rocker design, but they discovered soon enough that the engine's beauty came with an uninvited habit of leaving marks wherever it rested. For older riders who valued reliability above everything, those first years became a lesson in how innovative engineering can still overlook the realities of heat, metal, and long miles on rough American roads. The frustration came not from lack of power, but from the constant weeping along the top end. For men accustomed to maintaining their own machines, it became a repeated ritual. New seals, careful adjustments, hopeful rides, and then the familiar sight of a dark spot forming under the frame. Each repair felt like unfinished business, and even riders who adored the engine's smooth personality admitted that the leaks became a stubborn part of ownership. The more miles added, the more the issue revealed itself as a mismatch between aluminum, iron, and the sealing materials available at the time. Those differences created expansion rates that no gasket of that era could fully tame, especially for riders traveling long distances across changing temperatures. Yet despite the frustration, the engine became woven into the culture. The sound, the shape, and the character left a mark deeper than the oil on the pavement. Riders still recall the pride of those early years, even while remembering the drip pans tucked behind garage doors. The early panhead produced around 60 horsepower from 1,210 cubic centimeters and delivered close to 60 pound-feet of torque, marking a notable improvement over the outgoing knucklehead. Those frustrations set the stage for an engine whose hidden weakness struck without warning and left riders stranded in disbelief. But before the next engine on this list, make sure you're ready. Gears and accessories are linked in the description. Number 7. Harley-Davidson Twin Cam, 88 launch defect. Some engines warn you with a rattle, a stumble, or a gradual loss of power. Others stay silent until the moment they decide to quit, leaving a rider on the shoulder, wondering how a brand built on durability allowed such a flaw through its doors. That was the experience many faced when the early version of this engine arrived. Riders expected a strong successor to the previous generation, a power plant built for long hauls, heavy loads, and the kind of miles older Americans proudly stack on their odometers. Instead, they found themselves dealing with a hidden problem buried deep inside the cam chest, waiting to reveal itself at the worst possible time. The issue centered around a bearing that looked ordinary on paper, yet carried enormous responsibility. If it failed, the effect was immediate and often severe. There were no gradual warnings, no gentle signs of fatigue, just a sudden failure that could seize a ride and end a trip instantly. Many learned of the defect only after hearing unsettling noises or feeling the engine stumble. For riders who trusted their machines as faithful partners on long roads, the discovery felt like a personal betrayal. They maintained their bikes, respected their engines, and expected the same in return. These moments tested the confidence of men who had spent decades believing in the strength of Harley's internals. While the company eventually acknowledged their issue, the damage had already shaped the reputation of those first years. Owners who planned to keep their machines for life suddenly faced expensive repairs and long downtimes. The pride of ownership dulled under the weight of mechanic bills and uncertainty. The twin cam 88 generated about 63 horsepower from 1,450 cubic centimeters and produced roughly 80 pound-feet of torque in stock factory trim. Just when riders thought the worst was behind them, another iconic motor stepped forward with a flaw that marked an entire generation. Number 6. Harley-Davidson Evolution Big Twin. Some engines arrive at just the right moment in history, carrying the weight of a company's survival on their cases. This one did exactly that, rescuing a fading brand and reminding riders that American steel could still carry the heart of the open road. Yet, even a respected design can carry a flaw that refuses to be ignored. Beneath the pride and the sound that defined a generation, riders soon learned that this engine had a weakness lurking at the base of its cylinders. A weakness that turned routine maintenance into a recurring ritual. Every man who lived through those years remembers wiping away the same stubborn leak and hoping the next gasket would finally hold. The issue was never about the engine's spirit. It pulled hard, breathed better than its predecessor, and gave older riders the confidence to put down serious miles again. But heat cycles, uneven surfaces, and imperfect machining created a headache that haunted long-term ownership. Men who took pride in keeping their machines spotless found themselves fighting a losing battle as the familiar line of oil traced down the cases. Each repair offered temporary relief, yet the seepage returned, as though the engine were reminding its owner that progress always demands compromise. In those moments, riders realized that a machine could be both dependable and demanding at the same time. What kept this engine respected was not perfection, but character. Riders forgave its shortcomings because they felt connected to it. They understood its heartbeat and its quirks, and many still claim the era it defined was the last time Harley built with soul over style. Still, the persistent leaks became part of the story, something every owner dealt with in his own way. The Evolution Big Twin produced between 50 and 55 horsepower from 1,340 cubic centimeters and generated approximately 65 to 70 pound-feet of torque, depending on model and tuning. Far from refinement, some engines tested riders in ways only grit and perseverance could overcome, leading to one of Harley's roughest creations. Number 5. Harley-Davidson Ironhead Sportster. Some engines earn their reputation not through refinement, but through rawness that tests a rider's resolve. This one became a proving ground for men who believed endurance was part of the journey. It did not whisper or ease into motion. It growled, shook, and demanded strength from the moment the starter clattered to life. Riders who lived through those early years never forgot the sensation of every pulse running straight through the bars and into their bones. It was a machine that refused to apologize for its behavior, and at times, that stubborn nature pushed even seasoned riders to the edge of patience. The vibration was more than a mild inconvenience. Long trips turned into physical challenges as hands numbed and mirrors blurred into useless decorations. Bolts loosened with frustrating regularity, forcing riders to build a ritual around tightening and checking before every significant ride. Yet, for many, that ritual became a badge of honor. Men who grew up wrenching found themselves in familiar company, trading stories about how they kept the engine alive through sheer attention and resilience. The machine demanded involvement, and riders who met that demand earned a sense of connection that polished engines never replicate. Oil consumption added a second challenge. Topping off became as routine as fueling, and owners often joked that the engine burned as much pride as petrol. But beneath the humor was a quiet acceptance that the machine's hunger was real. Still, it carved out a place in history by delivering an unmistakable sound and feel, a personality that modern engines rarely attempt. Riders who mastered it spoke with a mix of respect and exhaustion, remembering both the thrill and the work required to keep the journey going. The Ironhead, in its 883 cubic centimeter form, delivered about 53 horsepower and roughly 48 pound-feet of torque, though figures varied slightly across production years. History soon delivered an era shaped by factory turmoil, leaving machines that carried the scars of decisions made far from the road. Number 4. Harley-Davidson AMF-era shovelhead. Some engines carry the scars of the times that produced them, and this one became a reflection of an era when the company behind it was fighting battles far beyond the shop floor. Riders from those years still remember how the machine felt on the road, but they also remember the frustration that came with owning a motor built in a period marked by labor disputes, rushed production, and cost-cutting that cut far deeper than anyone expected. What should have been a proud evolution of a trusted design instead became a symbol of how quickly quality can slip when decisions drift away from the men who actually ride. Older riders often talk about how these engines varied wildly from one machine to another. One might run beautifully for years, while the next struggled from day one. That inconsistency was new and unsettling. Riders were used to dealing with quirks, but not with factory mistakes that demanded immediate attention. Oil seepage became so common that many accepted it as part of the ownership experience. Still, beneath the jokes and the resigned smiles, there was a deeper frustration. No rider wants to place a drip pan under a machine he believes should be ready for the highway at dawn. Electrical problems also haunted this era. Charging systems behaved unpredictably, leaving riders stranded with dead batteries on long stretches of road. Capital decisions meant cheaper components sneaked into places where durability mattered most. Those choices undermined trust and forced men to double-check every bolt and connection before starting a long ride. In many ways, riders became the final inspectors for a factory struggling to keep up with demand. Every mile felt earned, not given. Yet, even with its flaws, there was a kind of stubborn pride in keeping these engines alive. They represented a time when riders leaned on each other for guidance, parts, and late-night garage sessions. The AMF-era shovelhead produced around 60 horsepower from 1,210 cubic centimeters and generated approximately 70 pound-feet of torque when properly tuned and maintained. Modern engineering eventually arrived with hope, yet underneath the promise waited a problem that surfaced only when the miles stacked high. If you're finding this breakdown valuable, now is the perfect time to subscribe. Staying connected ensures you never miss the insights, warnings, and history that every rider should know before trusting any engine on the road. Number 3. Harley-Davidson Milwaukee 8 Gen 1. Some mechanical problems announce themselves with warning signs, but others hide beneath the surface, waiting for just the right conditions to show their true nature. That is what made this engine so frustrating for riders who believed they were stepping into a new chapter of smooth power, cooler running temperatures, and long-distance confidence. Many expected a return to form, a modern engine built with the lessons of the past in mind. Instead, they found themselves wrestling with an issue that showed up only after long highway stretches, hot afternoons, or heavy loads, turning what should have been effortless touring into a fight against rising heat and fading performance. The heart of the trouble lived where most riders never look, deep inside the crankcase. Oil began to gather instead of flowing cleanly back to the tank, slowly building a pool that starved the top end and flooded the bottom with froth. Men who had spent decades listening for problems could not hear this one coming. They only felt the results as the bike grew hotter, lazier, and more reluctant to deliver the strong, steady pull they expected from a new design. Some riders described the sensation as if the machine were struggling to breathe. Others felt the heat climbing toward their legs until long rides became uncomfortable and, at times, unwise. And when those riders checked their dipsticks, many made the same understandable mistake, adding more oil to fix a reading that appeared too low. In reality, the engine had plenty just trapped in the wrong place. The overfill only made things worse, and the cycle repeated until frustration replaced the early excitement of owning something new. Yet, even with the complaints, riders wanted to believe in the engine because the potential was there. It had the bones of a strong design, held back by a flaw that should have been resolved before it ever reached the showroom. Many owners searched for answers, comparing notes with friends, reading service bulletins, and trying every small adjustment they hoped might restore confidence. Others rode cautiously, listening for warnings and wondering whether the next stretch of highway would expose additional problems. Through it all, a lingering belief persisted that the platform could evolve into something far more dependable if the oversight had been addressed properly. The first generation Milwaukee 8, in its 1748 cubic centimeter form, produced roughly 92 horsepower and delivered about 114 pound-feet of torque. One design flaw rarely tells the whole story, and this engine proved how gradual failure can be just as devastating as sudden collapse. Number 2. Harley-Davidson Twin Cam. 96 and 103. Some failures do not strike all at once. They build slowly, mile after mile, until riders begin to recognize the same unsettling noises, the same slipping sensation in the drivetrain, and the same frustration that comes from knowing a dependable machine now carries a weakness it should never have had. That is what defined this engine for thousands of riders who believed they were buying long-distance reliability. The early miles felt smooth enough, but over time, the heart of the drivetrain began to reveal a flaw that turned routine rides into mechanical guessing games. Men who had trusted their bikes to carry them across states started hearing an unfamiliar knock echoing from the primary, a sign that something deeper was starting to fail. The problem centered around the compensator, a part most riders never think about until it stops doing its job. When it worked, it softened the harshness of the crank and delivered smooth, confident acceleration. When it failed, the bike behaved like it had slack in its backbone. Cold starts brought clunks that grew louder as the miles climbed. Acceleration lost its edge, and long-distance riders felt every inconsistency through the pegs. What should have been a quiet, dependable transition of power became a reminder that even modern designs can overlook the realities of real-world riding, especially for older Americans who still stack 5,000 miles or more each year. Riders who expected a steady, trustworthy pull instead found themselves listening for warning signs, questioning whether the next trip might reveal a deeper problem. Many spent hours researching fixes, comparing updated components, and debating whether the factory would ever fully address the issue that had reshaped their confidence. Riders tried temporary fixes. Some added thicker oils. Others installed aftermarket parts that promised longevity. But for many, the damage had already begun. Replacing the compensator was costly, and the work arrived far sooner than most owners ever expected. Frustration spread because the rest of the engine showed potential good torque, a comfortable cruising character, and modern manners that appealed to touring riders. Yet none of that could outweigh the growing concern that the drivetrain could falter again. The Twin Cam, 96, produced around 68 horsepower from 1,584 cubic centimeters with about 92 pound-feet of torque, while the Twin Cam 103 delivered roughly 75 horsepower from 1,690 cubic centimeters and just under 100 pound-feet of torque. Everything that came before leads to the engine riders still talk about the one whose single misstep became a defining moment in Harley history. Number 1. Harley-Davidson Phi Twin Model K. Some engines mark a turning point in history, but not always for the reasons a company hopes. The Model K arrived in the early 1950s as Harley's attempt to modernize its middleweight lineup, promising smoother performance, stronger handling, and a new direction for riders who wanted something lighter than the big twins. Instead, it became a lesson in how an ambitious idea can falter under the pressure of real American roads. For many owners, the engine felt underpowered from the first mile, struggling to deliver the confident pull riders expected from the bar and shield name. Heat built quickly, lubrication often proved inconsistent, and the bottom end showed a weakness that revealed itself long before the machine reached serious mileage. Riders who trusted their instincts tried tuning, adjusting, and coaxing better performance from the motor, but the limitations were baked into its bones. Long trips pushed the engine harder than it could comfortably handle, while city riding exposed hesitation and laboring that left many questioning whether the design had been tested in the conditions everyday riders faced. Build quality varied from bike to bike, and owners soon realized that the Model K demanded maintenance far beyond what a mid-sized V-twin should require. Every mile felt like a negotiation rather than a partnership. More than its mechanical flaws, the emotional disappointment carried the deepest sting. Harley riders wanted to believe in the new direction, yet the Model K made them feel as though the brand had misread what they valued most: strength, reliability, and a motor that could take punishment without faltering. Many who owned it remember the frustration of repeated adjustments, overheated afternoons, and the quiet resignation that came when they accepted the limits of the machine. Delivering approximately 30 horsepower, 750 cubic centimeters, and around 35 pound-feet of torque, the engine simply could not live up to the expectations riders had built over decades. In the end, the Model K became less a triumph and more a hard-earned lesson one that paved the way for the Sportster, while standing as a reminder of how easily ambition can outrun execution. Every engine on this list left a mark on riders, on the brand, and on the history of American motorcycles. Some taught hard lessons, others nearly drove people away from Harley altogether. But every rider who lived through these failures has a story worth hearing. So drop yours in the comments. Tell us what you rode, what failed, and how you kept it on the road. If this breakdown brought back a memory or saved you a headache, hit that like button and subscribe. We've got more truth, more history, and more real-world insight coming.